In the heart of a charming Italian town where cobblestone streets echoed with laughter and secrets, there lived a young woman named Eliza Monroe. Her life was an idyllic blend of routine and tranquility. Working as a librarian, she found solace in the hushed whispers of turning pages, each book becoming a portal to a different world. However, behind her quiet exterior lay a soul that yearned for more, a yearning she couldn't quite define. It was a feeling that resonated with the rhythm of the waves crashing against the shore, a constant yet distant melody. One fateful afternoon, as the sun cast long shadows across the town, a peculiar incident occurred that would shatter the tranquility of Civita Marina forever. The theft of the blue stone, a priceless relic kept in the town's church, sent shockwaves through the community. This was no ordinary stone. It was steeped in local lore, said to have been a protector of fishermen during perilous storms. Its disappearance was a wound in the town's heart, a gaping hole that threatened to swallow its peace. The townspeople were a mix of grief and anger, their whispers carrying accusations that flew like shards of glass. Amidst this turmoil, there was Louisa. She felt the weight of the town's sorrow, yet something about it stirred a peculiar feeling within her, a sense of responsibility that transcended her own safety. While others pointed fingers and wove tales of deceit, Louisa remained contemplative. She couldn't shake off the incident, no matter how hard she tried. Restless nights turned into anxious days. Even the familiar comfort of books failed to hold her attention. Instead, she found herself drawn to the very center of the town, standing before the church where the blue stone once resided. Each visit brought back the turmoil she was trying to escape, yet she couldn't turn back. It was as if the town's pain had become her own. As the days went by, the investigation into the theft seemed to hit a wall. Witnesses offered conflicting accounts, and leads turned into dead ends. Officer Carlo Baini, a man respected for his sharp intellect and unwavering determination, was at the helm of the investigation. Despite his best efforts, the case remained unsolved. Deepening the frustration and despair that had settled over Civita Marina, Louisa was working late one evening when she heard a knock at the library door. She opened it to find a woman standing in the dim light. It was Francesca Romani, a local antique dealer known for her knowledge of obscure histories and hidden treasures. Her presence was both intriguing and unsettling. Louisa invited her in. Their conversation led to the recent events. Francesca's eyes held a knowing glint as she spoke. "The blue stone isn't just a legend, Louisa. It's a tangible piece of our past." Her voice echoed with an urgency that made Louisa's heart race. "But why would someone steal it?" Louisa asked, her voice barely a whisper. "Because they believe it holds more than just historical value," Francesca replied, leaning closer. "They think it can bring them untold wealth. But such power comes at a price." Louisa nodded, understanding dawning on her. She realized that the theft of the blue stone wasn't just about material gain. It was a desperate grasp at power, a dangerous game with consequences that could ripple through their peaceful town. The weight of these revelations pressed down on her, making it harder to breathe. The theft wasn't merely a crime. It was a disruption of the very essence of their community. Later that night, as the moon cast its silvery glow over Civita Marina, Louisa found herself drawn back to the church. Standing in its shadow, she felt a surge of determination. This place, once a sanctuary of peace, now symbolized their collective pain. It was here that she decided she would do whatever it took to uncover the truth. She would use every resource at her disposal, every book, every whisper, every secret, to solve the mystery of the stolen blue stone. Days turned into weeks, and the search for the blue stone became an obsession for many in Civita Marina. Speculation ran rampant, casting long shadows of doubt over long-standing friendships and rivalries. Yet amidst this sea of uncertainty, Louisa found a beacon of support in the most unexpected of places. Paolo Rocco, the kind-hearted baker, had been watching Louisa's quiet determination. His initial concern for his friend had evolved into a deep admiration for her spirit. Recognizing her strength, he offered his help, pledging to stand by her side. His presence was a comforting constant, a reminder of the enduring strength of their community. Meanwhile, Officer Carlo Baini, relentless in his pursuit of justice, was piecing together fragments of information. He had a hunch that the answer lay hidden in the town's history. Spending countless hours poring over old documents, he sought to find a connection between the blue stone and the town's past. His dedication was unwavering, driven by his duty to restore order to their beloved Civita Marina. As Louisa and Paolo delved deeper into the mystery, they uncovered a series of cryptic clues, each leading them further into a labyrinth of secrets. These clues, like pieces of a shattered mirror, reflected fragments of a forgotten history. An old map, a faded journal, a cryptic poem, each held a piece of the puzzle, yet none revealed the complete picture. The closer they got to the truth, the more danger seemed to lurk around them. Threats, subtle yet menacing, began to surface, attempting to steer them away from their path. But their resolve only grew stronger. With each passing day, their determination to unveil the truth behind the theft of the blue stone intensified. A shared look between Louisa and Paolo was enough to convey their thoughts. They were in this together, bound by their love for their town and their unwavering belief in justice. Their friendship, tested by adversity, emerged stronger, ready to confront whatever challenges lay ahead. Together, they continued their quest, determined to bring the truth to light. Then came a breakthrough. Louisa, poring over an old book in the library, stumbled upon a passage that hinted at a secret society, one that had existed in Civita Marina during the time the blue stone was supposedly lost. This society, shrouded in secrecy, was rumored to have held the key to many of the town's forgotten secrets. Could they be connected to the theft? This revelation led them to an abandoned warehouse on the town's outskirts. Armed with newfound determination, Louisa and Paolo approached the building. Its dilapidated structure loomed over them, a silent testament to years of neglect. As they stepped inside, the musty air hung heavy with the scent of decay. Amidst the clutter, they found a hidden compartment. A small wooden box lay nestled inside. With trembling hands, they opened it, revealing an assortment of old documents and a small key. This key was the answer they had been seeking, the missing piece to the puzzle. It fit perfectly into a small hole in the wall, opening a secret passageway. Beyond the passage lay a tunnel, its end disappearing into the darkness. Armed with a lantern, Louisa descended into the tunnel. The air grew colder, damp against her skin. The tunnel was a maze of twists and turns, each bend leading them deeper into the earth. Finally, the tunnel opened into a vast cavern, and there, in the center, bathed in an ethereal glow, was a sight that took their breath away. The blue stone, nestled amidst ancient ruins, looked as though it had been placed there intentionally. But who had taken it from the church and why? The discovery shook them to their core. The blue stone wasn't just a stolen relic, it was a link to their town's forgotten past. This realization gave their quest new urgency. Now they had to not only recover the stone, but also uncover the truth behind its removal. With the blue stone recovered, Civita Marina rejoiced. But the journey had changed Louisa and Paolo. They had uncovered not only the location of the stone, but also a part of their town's history that had been lost for centuries. The true mastermind behind the theft, a descendant of the secret society, had sought to profit from the stone's power. But their plans had been thwarted. The unity that had emerged from their ordeal was a testament to the strength of their community. As the blue stone was returned to its place in the church, everyone in Civita Marina felt a sense of renewal. Their town, once fractured by suspicion, was now bound together by a shared experience. And in the heart of it all stood Louisa and Paolo, their friendship solidified, their spirits unbroken. The ordeal had been a test of their strength, a trial by fire that had forged their bond even stronger. The future held new challenges, but they were ready to face them together, knowing that as long as they had each other, they could overcome anything. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over Civita Marina, a picturesque Italian coastal town nestled between the azure sea and rolling hills. It was the kind of place where time seemed to slow down, where the rhythm of life was dictated by the tides and seasons. However, tonight, the tranquility of the town was shattered. An unsettling unease hung in the air, replacing the usual peaceful ambience. The townspeople of Civita Marina were known for their resilience, their camaraderie, and their unwavering commitment to their traditions. But tonight, their faces were etched with worry and confusion, all because of one missing artifact, a seemingly ordinary blue stone embedded in the centuries-old facade of the town's church. Affectionately nicknamed the Blue Stone, it was more than just a rock. It was a symbol of their heritage, a silent witness to the town's history. Its disappearance was a wound on the collective heart of Civita Marina, a stark reminder of a past now blemished by uncertainty and doubt. As the darkness deepened, the whispers grew louder. Speculations flew like seagulls over the piazza, each person adding their own theories to the mix. Some believed it was the handiwork of an outsider, a tourist, or a passerby with little regard for the town's sentiments. Others, however, believed the culprit was one of them, a fellow townsperson who had managed to infiltrate the church, unnoticed. Their quiet town, usually so safe and predictable, had become a labyrinth of secrets and suspicions. Among the most disturbed was police officer Carlo Baini, a man deeply rooted in Civita Marina. He had patrolled these very streets for years, ensuring the safety and security of the town he called home. But now it was his town's soul that was under siege, and he felt woefully inadequate. Having spent the entire night awake, he had walked around the church countless times, trying to find some clue, some indication of how the stone had been removed or who was behind its disappearance. But the church, usually a sanctuary of sorts, offered him no answers. Only the fine grains of sand, and that single layer of dampness beneath the window persisted in their mockery, mocking his inability to solve this most peculiar case. For Carlo, the theft of the blue stone was more than just a criminal case. It was a personal affront. It challenged his understanding of the town and its people, a stark reminder of the complexities of human nature. He knew one thing for certain, though. No outsider could have managed to enter the church so surreptitiously and steal the stone. Someone from the town must have orchestrated this. But who, and why? Meanwhile, in her cozy library, high up in the bell tower of the same church whose relic had been stolen, sat Louisa Marini, a woman whose wisdom and insight were as revered in Civita Marina as the church itself. Her eyes, though aged, held a spark of determination, and her hands, despite their tremor, clutched the 2 notes she had received. Each crease and curve of the paper was a mystery to her. The sentence was the same on both, but the second note held a peculiar addition, a circle with 3 waves drawn inside it. She found it intriguing, yet it didn't provide any clear lead. The simplicity of the drawing was deceptive, leaving more questions than answers in its wake. Who was behind this cryptic message? Why was she chosen as the recipient? And what did the drawing signify? These questions swirled in her mind, forming a puzzle she was determined to solve. As the first rays of sunlight touched the horizon, signaling the dawn of a new day, Civita Marina stirred from its slumber. The quaint town awoke to the realization that the blue stone was irretrievably lost. A profound sadness had settled over the town, a somber testament to the significance of the missing relic. The vibrant colors of the houses lining the piazza seemed duller. The cheerful chatter of the locals had been replaced by hushed whispers. The theft of the blue stone had not just robbed them of a historical artifact, it had eroded a part of their collective soul. And nowhere was this sorrow felt more acutely than in the marketplace, the heart and soul of Civita Marina. It was here where the townsfolk gathered daily, not just to trade goods, but to trade stories, laughter and hopes and dreams. But this morning, the marketplace echoed with only one topic: the missing blue stone. Every corner, every cobblestone, every fruit-laden stall bore witness to the unease gripping the town. Some still clung to the belief that an outsider was responsible, pointing fingers at passing tourists or recent arrivals. Others, however, couldn't shake off the feeling that the thief was one of them, a fellow townsperson who had managed to conceal their crime under the guise of their familiarity. Suspicion hung in the air, heavy and suffocating, turning neighbors into wary strangers. Amidst this cacophony of accusations and counter-accusations, one person stood out: Paolo Rucci, the owner of the town's beloved bakery. His bakery, with its mouth-watering pastries and warm loaves of bread, had always been a source of comfort and joy for the townspeople. But today, the sight of Paolo opening his shop was enough to send a shiver down their spines. It was almost as if the mere sight of him brought back the weight of their misfortune. As Paolo opened the bakery that morning, the townspeople's eyes lingered on him longer than usual. In that small Italian town, everyone knew everyone else's business, making it nearly impossible for anyone to operate in secrecy. Yet somehow the thief had managed to pull off this audacious heist, stealing away not just a stone, but a piece of the town's soul. Paolo's usually warm and inviting smile seemed strained, mirroring the somber mood of the town. The townspeople, burdened by their shared loss and suspicion, seemed to pour their grief and anger onto him. "You live closest to the church, don't you? Do you know anything about this?" a man demanded, his voice sharp with accusation. The question hung in the air, heavy with the weight of unspoken accusations. Paolo, taken aback by the sudden outburst, instinctively took a step back. His heart pounded against his ribs, a frantic drum solo in the symphony of his apprehension. He knew the townspeople were hurting, desperate for answers, but he was as perplexed as they were. Taking a deep breath to steady himself, Paolo replied, "I'm as shocked as you are, but believe me, this was done by someone who knows us all." His words, though intended to offer solace, did little to quell the brewing storm of emotions in the crowd. The townspeople exchanged uneasy glances. Could the thief really be one of them? The thought sent a chill down their spines. They had always prided themselves on their tight-knit community, their ability to predict each other's moves before they even made them. But now they realized the facade they had built over the years was nothing but sand slipping through their fingers. As the day wore on, the anxiety in Civita Marina reached a fever pitch. Accusations flew like shrapnels, tearing apart the fabric of their society. Friendships were tested, families divided, and the blue stone remained missing. Amidst the chaos, Luisa and Carlo found themselves drawn together, united by their shared concern for the town. Realizing the gravity of the situation, they decided to join forces, hoping that two minds were better than one. They started by revisiting the site of the crime, the church. Each step was a reminder of the mystery that had befallen their town. As they stood beneath the gaping hole where the blue stone once resided, a sense of urgency settled upon them. Time was of the essence. The longer the stone remained missing, the deeper the rift of distrust grew within the town. Luisa, with her years of experience in deciphering the complexities of human behavior, decided to focus on the psychological aspect of the case. She revisited the notes she had received, studying them as if they held the key to unraveling the entire mystery. Carlo, on the other hand, delved into the logistics, retracing the steps of the thief, looking for any anomaly, any sign that could give away the culprit. Their methods were different, but their dedication was the same. They were both determined to restore not just the blue stone, but also the peace of mind to Civita Marina. As the sun began its descent, casting long shadows across Civita Marina, Luisa found herself back at the church. The familiar surroundings had taken on a new meaning in the context of their investigation. Suddenly, something about the notes caught her attention. She remembered the sketch on the second note, the circle with 3 wavy lines. Wasn't that a common symbol for the sea? Could there be a connection between the thief and the sea? This realization led her to a startling conclusion. But before she could delve deeper into her thoughts, Carlo approached her. his face etched with concern. "Luisa, we need to talk." Carlo searched her eyes, but said nothing. He returned to his investigation. By evening, another strange event shook the town. On the shore, a group of fishermen's boys found a bottle tangled in their net, an old glass bottle with a piece of paper inside. They brought it straight to Carlo. The paper was unrolled, and once again the same chilling line appeared: "The truth lies buried beneath the sea." But this time, an extra phrase was scrawled beneath it. Marina, not Carlo, read it aloud. An elder in the crowd gasped. "That's from the old dialect. It means night shore," he translated, his face grave. All eyes turned to Carlo. Was this a warning? Was the next move going to happen at the shore, under the cover of night? That evening, the town grew eerily quiet. Doors were shut, lights dimmed, and people stayed inside. But Louisa's heart found no rest. She spread the 2 notes and the bottle's message before her, staring at them while questions swirled in her head. Suddenly, there was a soft knock at her window. She froze. Looking out, she saw no one. Only a small envelope lay beneath the sill. She picked it up. Inside, just one word was written: tomorrow. Her heartbeat raced. It meant something was going to happen tomorrow, but what, and where? At the other end of town, Elsa Frio, the old woman, gazed out of her worn window. Her voice trembled as she muttered, "The stone's disappearance was only the first step. The second will shake the very foundations of this town." Outside, the waves of the sea roared louder, as if warning Civita Marina itself, and no one knew what kind of storm the coming day was about to bring. As the first rays of sun touched the rooftops, Louisa was already awake. Sleep had been a luxury her troubled mind refused to grant. Every creak of the old house, every sigh of the wind, was a new sound to her. Fear pricked at her. She thought of the ominous note. Tomorrow. What did it mean? Where would tomorrow take place? Her gaze fell upon the 2 messages from the mysterious benefactor. She studied them again, searching for a clue. The mention of the sea in the second note, the bottle message, could it be connected to the seashore? Had the person who wrote the notes left some kind of clue there? She found Carlo by the sea. He, too, seemed troubled. The previous evening's events had clearly disturbed him, but he was trying to keep busy, examining the sand and the rocks near the waterline. "Did you sleep?" she asked softly. He looked up, surprised. "Not much," he admitted, his voice hoarse. She joined him, keeping a respectful distance. Neither of them spoke for a while, the silence broken only by the cry of gulls and the restless lapping of the waves against the shore. "Do you think it's dangerous?" Luisa finally asked, her voice barely a whisper. Carlo turned to her, his expression grave. "I don't know what to think, Luisa. These messages, they're cryptic. We can't decipher their meaning." He paused, then added in a low voice, "But we have to try." Just then, a sudden movement caught Carlo's eye. A shape half buried in the sand not far from them stirred. Carlo rushed to it, brushing away the sand to reveal a large flat stone. But it wasn't just any stone. Etched into its surface was an ancient symbol, one that radiated an otherworldly feel. It was identical to the one that adorned the statue in Luisa's garden. Luisa and Carlo stared at the stone, their faces pale. They had found another link in this chain of enigmatic events. The stone's discovery brought a new urgency to their investigation. As the day wore on, they continued their search, combing through the town's history, poring over old documents, and speaking to the oldest residents. They needed to understand the symbols, the messages, and the seemingly random events that were unfolding. The pressure mounted as they realized the stakes were high. The fate of Civita Marina might hang in the balance. And with each passing moment, the mystery deepened, threatening to engulf the entire town. They found more stones bearing the same ancient symbol hidden in various places around the town. Each one a piece of a larger puzzle. Each symbol seemed to be a signpost, guiding them closer to the truth, but also bringing them face to face with the town's dark past. The atmosphere in Civita Marina grew heavy with anticipation. The townspeople, initially skeptical, were now on edge, sensing that the calm before the storm was ending. The events of the past few days had shaken them to their core. The tranquility of their seaside town was shattered, replaced by fear and uncertainty. They looked to Carlo and Luisa, hoping that their investigation would bring clarity and put an end to the turmoil. But as the sun set over Civita Marina, casting long shadows over the town, no one could say for sure what the next day would bring. When the morning sun rose, the people of Civita Marina grew even more restless. The church's blue stone was already gone, and now the bottle from the shore, with its cryptic message, had brought a new wave of fear. People avoided each other's eyes. No one truly believed this was the work of a stranger. Deep down, everyone felt it was someone from within. Carlo Bani decided that tonight he would personally keep watch at the shore. The words written inside the bottle, "Marina not, night shore," kept echoing in his mind. It was as if someone had thrown him a challenge, come and see. Meanwhile, for Luisa, time seemed to have frozen. Again and again, she looked at the notes, one with only the chilling line, the other with the line and the symbol, and now the bottle's message about the night shore. And then the envelope left under her window with that single word, tomorrow. Fear and curiosity twisted inside her. It felt like someone was testing her, pulling her into a game. All day, People visiting the library spoke of nothing else. Some muttered that the stone's disappearance was a bad omen. Others claimed it was punishment for the sins of the town. Louisa sat silently, listening. By evening, a stir broke out in the marketplace. A young girl, Anna, came running into Paolo's bakery, tears streaming down her face. Breathless, she cried, "My grandmother says she saw a shadow by the church last night. It wasn't a stranger, it was someone from here." The townsfolk grew even more unsettled. Whose shadow was it? Paolo immediately called for Carlo. Carlo questioned Anna's grandmother. The old woman, her voice trembling, said, "I saw him, standing near the church doors, but when he noticed me, he turned and disappeared." Carlo asked, "Did you see his face?" She shook her head. "No. All I remember is that he was tall and thin." Carlo's mind began racing. Paolo? No. Too broad-shouldered. Perhaps Marco, the teacher, or someone else. The thought gnawed at him. As night fell, Carlo stationed himself with 2 guards by the shore. The darkness was heavy, broken only by the sound of waves crashing against the sand. Suddenly, in the distance, a flickering light appeared, like a lantern swaying. Carlo motioned for silence and crept forward with his men. But just as they neared, the light vanished. All that remained were faint footprints in the sand, leading toward the sea. At the water's edge, they found a small bag. Inside was another piece of paper. Written on it were the words, "This is only the beginning. The next secret will be told by the one you trust the least." Carlo froze. It meant that someone in town someone dismissed, mistrusted, or ignored, held the next clue. But who could it be? At that very hour, Louisa sat in her room, staring out the window at the restless sea. A sudden knock rattled her door. Heart pounding, she opened it, but no one was there. Only an old photograph lay on the threshold. It showed the church, and in one corner, faint but unmistakable, was the same symbol, a circle with 3 waves. Louisa's hands trembled. The game had now reached her very doorstep. Elsewhere, in a crumbling courtyard, Elsa Frio walked slowly under the night sky. Gazing upward, she whispered, "The time has come. The truth can no longer stay buried." But her words dissolved into the silence. No one was there to hear them. Once again, Civita Marina sank into darkness and stillness. Yet deep inside, every soul sensed the same thing. The real story was about to unfold, and once it did, the town would never be the same again. The next morning, the sun rose over Civita Marina, but it was a bleak light. No birds sang, no children's laughter rang out. The streets were strangely silent. The townspeople moved like phantoms, their eyes lingering on one another just a beat too long. In that stolen glance, there was only one question. The thief is among us. Who was it? Who was not one of them? Carlo Benet awoke with a start. In his sleep, he had seen the dark water swirling, pulling down the blue stone. But it was unto-vision that troubled him so much as the note slipped inside the empty bag found at the shore. The next secret will be told by the one you trust the least. Who in Civita Marina would betray them? Who was it that they all secretly disliked? Even after a full night's rest, the question gnawed at him. A splinter lodged deep in his brain. Down in the harbor, fishermen cast their nets. Their faces were grim, their movements mechanical. One of them, Marco Brado, muttered, "You can feel it in your bones, can't you? A storm's coming, and this time we won't be able to hide." His companion nodded silently. No fish would be leaping today. Their nets would come up empty, just as their hopes were ebbing away. Louisa sat by the window in her room, staring out at the restless sea. She could not shake off the old photograph left at her door. The faded image of the church, the circle and waves etched faintly in the corner. Every time she looked at it, the symbol throbbed. It was not merely a picture, it was a message, a warning. She felt a chill crawl up her spine. What was the meaning of the circle and waves? And why was the game being played against her? Was this all just a cruel joke or something more sinister? As noon approached, the wind picked up, ruffling the leaves in the square. The townspeople began to gather. A hush fell over the crowd. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the alley behind the bakery. It was Paolo, his face pale, his eyes wild. "People of Civita Marina," he cried, "I must tell you the truth about the blue stone. I know what happened to it." Their eyes turned to him, hope flickering in their gazes. Could he really know the stone's whereabouts? After so many days of silence, finally, some news. Paolo took a deep breath and started to speak, his voice trembling slightly. "That night, the stone disappeared. I walked down to the shore and saw the empty niche. Filled with dread, I knew I had to find it. So I set out alone, searching the coast. Just as the first rays of dawn touched the horizon, I saw it. The stone lay hidden beneath some rocks. Overjoyed, I rushed to retrieve it, unaware that someone was watching from the shadows. As I lifted the stone, 2 men jumped out from behind the rocks. They grabbed my arms, accusing me of stealing it. Struggling to free myself, I stumbled backward. In a moment of panic, I pushed one of them, sending him crashing into the water. The other lunged for me, but I ran. When I turned back, I saw the stone floating in the waves, swept away by the tide. I tried to reach for it, but it was too late. The current was strong, and soon it vanished from sight. Exhausted and disheartened, I returned home. knowing that the fate of our town now hung in the balance? A gasp rippled through the crowd. Was the stone lost forever? Had Paolo really been so careless? But then, why had he kept silent for so long? Louisa watched Paolo closely. His face was flushed, his voice hoarse, his eyes darting nervously around the crowd. Was he telling the truth? Or was he, too, playing a part in this twisted game? Carlo, his gaze sharp as a hawk's, stepped forward. Why didn't you tell us this before? Paolo flinched slightly, then said, I was afraid of what you would think, afraid of what you would do. I hoped I could find the stone myself. Afraid, Carlo echoed, disbelief coloring his voice. You think we would have blamed you? We would have helped you look for it. Paolo looked down, unable to meet Carlo's piercing stare. For a moment, silence descended upon the crowd. Then whispers erupted, spreading like wildfire. So that's how it happened. Poor Paolo. He tried to find the stone, but how could he be so clumsy? One moment of carelessness, and the stone is gone. Louisa saw Carlo shake his head slowly. Doubt clouded his features. There's something he's not telling us, he murmured, his voice low. What do you mean? Louisa asked, her heart pounding. Carlo leaned closer, his eyes gleaming with determination. Whoever pushed Paolo that night knew exactly what would happen. The stone would fall into the sea and be lost. But why? Why would anyone want that? As if on cue, a commotion broke out at the far end of the crowd. It was old Manrico, his face contorted with rage. Enough of this. We've heard enough lies. The stone may be gone, but Civita Marina lives. And our town will not drown because of a silly legend. His booming voice echoed through the square, momentarily silencing the murmurs. Manrico is right. Another man shouted. We shouldn't let this stone break our town apart. Let's move past this and focus on our lives. Applause broke out, growing louder and more insistent. One by one, the people rallied behind Manrico, their voices rising in a chorus. We will not give up. We will save our town. Louisa felt a surge of relief. Had the crisis passed? Would they set aside the mystery of the stone and come together as a community? But Carlo remained unconvinced. He exchanged a worried glance with Louisa. This isn't over, he whispered, not by a long shot. As the evening shadows stretched long across the town, Louisa sat alone in her room, the fading light painting the walls in hues of orange and purple. Outside, the sound of hammers and saws echoed, a testament to the townspeople's resilience. But their optimism did little to ease the turmoil in her heart. She couldn't shake off the feeling that this was only the beginning. Just then, a soft knock sounded at the door. Her heart skipped a beat. Who could it be at this hour? Slowly, she walked to the door and opened it a crack. There, in the fading light, stood an old woman, her face lined with years of untold stories. May I help you? Louisa asked cautiously. The old woman smiled, revealing a twinkle in her eyes. My dear child, I have something you might want to see. She held out a small, intricately carved box. Curiosity flickered in Louisa's eyes. What's this? The old woman's smile widened. Open it and find out. Louisa hesitated for a moment, then reached out to take the box. As she lifted the lid, a faded parchment fluttered out. With trembling hands she unrolled it, revealing an elegant script. Find me at the stroke of midnight, it read, at the place where shadows dance with the moon. Bring the seeker and the sailor, and the truth shall be unveiled. Louisa gasped, her heart pounding in her chest. What did it mean? Where was the old woman leading her? And what did it mean to bring the seeker and the sailor? She glanced at the old woman, whose eyes twinkled with amusement. Who are the seeker and the sailor? She asked. The old woman simply smiled enigmatically. Only the midnight hour will reveal that, my dear child. With a final wink, she turned and disappeared into the shadows, leaving Louisa in the depths of her own bewilderment. By the stroke of midnight, Louisa stood at the edge of the harbor, the cool sea breeze whipping strands of hair across her face. Beside her stood Carlo and Marco, the sailor, their faces etched with worry. The old woman's cryptic message echoed in Louisa's mind. At the place where shadows dance with the moon? What did it mean? The old woman had vanished, leaving them with more questions than answers. The faint glow of the moon cast eerie shadows that danced and twisted on the water. Where are we going? Marco whispered, his voice barely audible above the lapping waves. Louisa shook her head, her gaze fixed on the shimmering expanse of the sea. She didn't know. But as the minutes ticked by, she felt a growing sense of dread. What secrets were they about to uncover? And how would it change everything they thought they knew? Civita Marina was no longer the same. Suspicion hung in the air like a heavy fog, replacing the salty tang of the sea. Neighbors who once shared meals across rickety tables now avoided each other's gaze, casting fearful glances over their shoulders. On everyone's lips lingered one burning question: who had stolen the blue stone from the church, and who bore the heaviest suspicion? Paolo, the baker, people whispered. He used everyone's trust against them. That sly devil. He wanted to win us over with his innocent facade, all while pocketing the prize. Yet deep inside, Carlo felt a strange pull. Something didn't quite fit. Was Paolo really capable of such deceit? Could someone he considered a friend have manipulated them all? Shaken by these thoughts, Carlo decided to visit Louisa. the wise tavern owner whose intuition often steered them through Civita Marina's murky waters. As he pushed open the tavern door, a familiar sight met his eyes. There amidst the rows of dusty books, sat Louisa, her brow furrowed in concentration. She looked up as Carlo entered, a stack of old ledgers in her hands. "I believe I found something," she said, her voice hushed with import. She gestured for him to sit down, and began to speak in hushed tones. "While sorting through some ancient documents," she explained, "I came across a record from 300 years ago. It speaks of a hidden treasure connected to this church and our town's founding. The document also mentioned a stone, the blue stone, entrusted to safeguard this secret." Carlo listened intently, piecing together the puzzle. If the stone was used to guard a hidden treasure, then whoever stole it must have known its significance. But why, and how did Paolo fit into all of this? Just then, Louisa straightened up, a sudden realization dawning on her face. "Carlo, I think I found another clue, but it's going to take us both to find it." Intrigued, Carlo followed her out of the tavern and towards the old church. Their steps echoed on the cobblestones, each footfall amplifying the mystery that surrounded them. Reaching the church, Louisa led him to the archives, where rows upon rows of ancient books lined the shelves. With trembling hands, she pulled out a large, ornately carved Bible from the shelf. "I distinctly remember seeing a rolled-up parchment tucked inside this book," she whispered, her eyes scanning the aged pages. After a thorough search, Louisa finally found what she was looking for. A small, fragile piece of parchment lay concealed behind a loose page. Unfurling it carefully, they read the faded ink that formed cryptic words. "Where the sun kisses the earth at the hour of sorrow, there you shall find the first part of the tale." Louisa and Carlo exchanged puzzled looks. What did it mean? The sun kissing the earth at the hour of sorrow. Suddenly, Carlo's gaze fell on the stained-glass window depicting the town's patron saint, a saint known for bringing light into darkness. Below the saint, the sun was depicted touching the earth with its rays. Could it be? Louisa breathed. The hour of sorrow is noon, when the sun is at its zenith. Perhaps the window itself holds the answer. Hurrying to the window, they examined it closely. Sure enough, beneath the figure of the saint, one pane of glass was slightly ajar, revealing a small cavity behind it. With bated breath, they reached inside and felt around until their fingers brushed against something hard. Pulling it out, they found a small wooden box, intricately carved with symbols that seemed to writhe like serpents. But what could be inside this box? With trembling hands, Carlo lifted the lid. Nestled inside lay a collection of old parchments tied together with a faded blue ribbon. As Louisa began to unroll the first parchment, a shiver ran down her spine. The faded ink formed lines that told a tale of love, loss, and betrayal. But there was more. Hidden within the folds of the parchment was a tiny keyhole. With a small key that Carlo recognized from the church, they opened the second parchment to reveal a detailed map. Louisa traced the path with her finger. "It leads to the abandoned lighthouse on the outskirts of town." As they hurried towards the lighthouse, the setting sun painted the sky in hues of orange and purple. The lighthouse stood silhouetted against the darkening horizon, a silent sentinel of forgotten times. But what awaited them inside? Climbing the winding staircase, they reached the top of the lighthouse. In the center stood a pedestal made of black marble, cold and imposing. "That must be it," Louisa whispered, her voice echoing in the vast emptiness. As she approached the pedestal, her hand brushed against a loose stone, revealing a hollow space behind it. She inserted the key from the map and turned it. A low grinding sound echoed through the chamber as a section of the wall began to move, slowly revealing a dark opening. Holding their breath, Louisa and Carlo stepped through the opening, leaving the safety of the lighthouse behind. They found themselves in a cavern hidden beneath the lighthouse. The air grew thick with moisture and the smell of salt. Their eyes struggled to pierce the gloom. Then they saw it, resting on a rock in the middle of the cavern, the blue stone. Its ethereal glow illuminated the cavern, banishing the shadows and revealing carvings on the surrounding walls. Depictions of sea monsters and mythical creatures intertwined with strange symbols that seemed to writhe and shift. But what was the meaning behind the stone and these enigmatic carvings? Before they could ponder further, a sudden rumble shook the cavern, causing stones to rain down from the ceiling. "We need to get out of here," Carlo shouted over the din. They raced back to the entrance, stumbling over rocks and fallen debris. Bursting out of the cavern, they gasped for breath, their hearts pounding in their chests. The lighthouse behind them rumbled ominously, as if warning them never to return. Back in the familiar streets of Civita Marina, Carlo and Louisa felt the weight of the town's trust heavy on their shoulders. They had recovered the blue stone, but its presence brought more questions than answers. And the biggest question of all remained: who had stolen the stone, and why? Had Paolo merely taken it to protect it from those who coveted its power? Or was there something more, something darker at play? As night fell, casting long shadows across the town, Carlo and Louisa decided to confront Paolo, hoping to unravel the tangled web of deceit and uncover the truth. But what they were about to discover would shake the very foundations of Civita Marina. The revelations that awaited them threatened to tear apart the fabric of their community, leaving them to wonder if their town would ever truly heal.